Hello, newcomers to Es Laf Double Cross, or how it's pronounced. It's a weird name. If you're new here, you saw the game on, say, Kisuke stream, you thought, man, that looks sick, let me check it out. This is a quick introductory video. So first off, we do have a wiki hosted at Mitsumi at Gotta Be Legend. This got the basic stuff, it got the movesets, the inputs, some of the system mechanics. If you read through this on your character, you should at least know the basics. So go and check that out to make sure that you know your character. So you boot up the game, you see the screen. Down in the right corner, you have the important settings. If you press F12 or F11, you change the language. The English is machine translated. It's not a good translation, but you'll understand what it says. If you press F9 on this screen, you get up the button config, which means you can actually set your buttons. And what you do is you press your A key or your accept on the F9, or you press F9 again, and then you change all your keys. So up, down, left, right. A, B, C, D is just your normal buttons. It's light to heavy est, I suppose. Provocation is taunt and also reset during training mode, so it's actually really good. Fatal, we'll get into that one later, it's kind of important. Reserve is nothing, it's just in case he wants to add another button sooner or later. You press F11 to close down. To bind player 2, you press F10. However, when you do press F10, the game pauses, which means you have to press F10 again in order to actually bind your buttons. It's kind of silly, but that's how it is. Alright, so let's cover some of the other options before we go into the game as such. There's a netplay mode. It's super simple. You start host, you press the view IP address button, you actually get your IP address. I won't do that, you can hack me. Choose your protocol, TCP or UDP. UDP is usually the best one I would recommend. This is the port you host on. This game does not do port busting, which means you actually have to log into your router and open the port yourself in order to host. Delay, how much delay you're gonna have. The game can desync if you have too little delay, so it's a bit risky. You'll have to experiment with the guy you're playing with. When someone is hosted, connect to host. You type in the IP address using this primitive but very cool way to write an IP address. Select the protocol, select the port, start, and it works most of the time. It's kind of unstable, but sometimes it works well. Yeah, the last one is translated wrong, but whatever. There's a challenge mode, which is supposed to have challenge trials and such, but generally the game just crashes if you pick them because it's not really maintained. Every new version of the game breaks it, so yeah, can't do that. Same goes for replays. There's a replay collection. If these are not in the version you are currently playing, they will crash the game, so I wouldn't recommend actually looking at them too much. In the options menu, there's, most of these are obvious, like resolution, delay if you want to pretend to play online, FPS, it's good to have an FPS. This is information up top, it's always good to have, so you know this is FPS. Background brightness, it's how much the background will be visible. If you have this as 0, you'll just have a black screen instead of the background, and then 100% you'll actually see the background. Put it down so you notice the effect. Alright, that's the core. Let's go into the actual game. So, training mode. Main and Siska. Alright. So, this game has the general anime air dasher, whatever mechanics. You have gatlings, you have air dashes, you have double jump, you have to move around, you can press any button to any button to do what you want. Alright, then let's get done to that. You do combos, smashing to the buttons, you have gatlings, and so on. If you've played any other game in the genre, Guilty Gear, Blast Blue, whatever, you'll be used to this. you have specials, obviously. Special cancels. It's all good. So, the defensive mechanics that are universal. You have a burst, which you see down right at the 0 meter. So you have a burst, you have one per round, and you do it by pressing all 3 buttons. So bursting is almost instant, it's very close to Guilty Gear's burst. Really cool. Just get to burst. Get some combos, and if you jump cancel moves, you can block it. It's very much like Guilty Gear. If you press B plus C, you do a parry. The parry is, well, exactly what it says, right? It's parry. You can parry supers and you can parry throws. But otherwise, it's a great way to get out of danger. Parrying costs nothing, so just do the parry. But if you actually hit the parry, it costs you. Alright, he changed that in the recent patch. I don't keep up to date. You also have, if you hold forward and do parry, you do a tactical burst, tactical blast, counter blast, I don't know what it's called. All these cool functions. It's an invincible move. It's fast, practical, it does absolutely no damage, but it's useful to get people off. Likewise, you have the classic dead angle. Basic block string. Press B plus C, you block stun, and you do a blowback, and the opponent gets off. And it costs 2 meters, I think. Does it change that as well? No, I haven't had a meter. Alright, let's try it out. Yeah, I guess. Alright, so that's the basics of the defensive system. You might notice the life bars are kind of whack. Everything seems to do like 1 billion damage. It actually doesn't. So beneath your portraits, you have your actual life. You have 10,000 on mine. It's not main, it's mine. And then you have 9,000 on Siska. However, the life bar scales exponentially, which means that in the beginning everything does 1 billion damage on the life bar, and then in the end it looks like you have a ton of guts. You don't actually have guts in this game, it's only a visual effect. But it does mean that anything you do at the beginning seems to do almost half your life, although this does 2,000, which is not even like 25% of the life, but it looks like it does that. So it's just visual, it's not actual guts. Alright, so beneath your life gauge, you got the so-called risk gauge. It's actually spelled with a K instead of a C, so this is not Guilty Gear, people. The risk gauge is useful for backdashing. If you backdash, it costs 1 bar. If you don't have any bars, you can't backdash. It's also used when blocking. If you are blocking, you lose the risk gauge. It slowly chips down. If the risk gauge is 0, then you get stunned. It's classical fighting game stun, so completely open to combos. So if you backdash 4 times in a row, and then someone hits you, then you get stunned. You die.
Okay.
So you can do backdash, 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 and then the simple dash.
Okay.
Oh no. If you get hit, the bar goes up again. If you block, it doesn't. Which means sometimes it might actually be better to... Sometimes it might actually be better to take the hit instead of the... God, I'm so bad at this. I don't know my buttons. Backdash, backdash, backdash. Slowly shipping down, and when it hits 0, it completely got broken and stunned. Stun resets all scaling, so it's a free combo. Any stunner probably will kill you. There is one more way to lose risk gauge. It's called fatal guarding. We'll cover that in a bit. So first, it's got some attributes invulnerability. So you got the classical anti-airs, 6A is the universal anti-air. And they are invulnerable from the first frame on. So if you record Siska doing her 6A, we do a jump here, then even if it hits almost the... It's really hard to get the timing here, but it actually is invulnerable on the very first frame. You can go through safe jumps using your 6A, and the same thing goes for 6B, which is low invulnerable instead. So like it just cleanly beats it every time. So every character got at least one move that has this sort of invulnerability. You'll have to check on your character if it has or not. I don't know what characters. There's also, to continue the theme of some weird hitboxes, stuff like that, there are moves that always whiff on crouchers, even if the hitboxes would have hit. So this is to avoid instant overheads and possibly some blockings. So if we put on hitboxes, you can see, let's crouch. You can see that this actually hits you when you start, but first hits the crouchers. So if you find something that looks like an instant overhead, it might just. Alright, with hitboxes play on, let's go through one of the non-obvious ones. The green ones, your hitboxes, the white one is the push box, both one are obvious. There is a pink one. The pink one is where you hit someone. So if you are looking at spacing, you can see how much of it hits someone. You can see if you just barely hit someone, or if you hit someone really good reading. Some good trying out setups. How close are they to whiffing? How much can you space? How much can you walk backwards, and so on. Alright. This game has... let's showcase this. This game has an auto combo system, and it tries to be a smart auto combo system. It tries to help you out. So to demonstrate that, let's do Siska's 6A auto combo. So if you just press 6A, basic combo is super. However, the opponent is instead jumping, and you hit the 6A. Or you just into an aerial finisher, because it notices that it won't hit with the other moves, so it goes into something that instead will hit. If you do her 5B, if you're up close, 5B, goes into sweep. However, also it goes into super, but if you do not have super, it goes special instead. Super. If you are too far away for a sweep to hit, it doesn't go into the sweep, because you're mashing the auto combo. This goes doubly. If you, for example, go 2A and just keep on mashing, you will go through the extended... Go for the entire combo and do special. However, if you're a bit far away, it notices that it can actually hit the entire combo and then the sweep, so it just goes into the sweep instantly instead. So the auto combos try to help you. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're kind of stupid, but generally, if you hit a move and just keep mashing the button, you will get something that hits. If something hits. Except if you need to cancel to but generally the auto combos try to help you out. Alright, so the game mode options, they're kind of obvious. If you play any other fighting game, you notice them all, they're standard. The one that sticks out is this, called Fatal Guard, and this is the continued theme of the risk gauge. So we'll record Siska doing a basic block. Alright. Generally, when you block, you have this nice green spot, big green spot. However, if you are pressing buttons, you get a red spot. That's called a fail guard. Fail guards cost risk meter to do. And what it is if you are mashing a button while in a tight block string, you get a fail guard. That means if you're trying to option select something, you will get punished for it. You can't option select when blocking in this game. If you're trying to mash DP, you get punished for it. If you're trying to mash DP during block strings and it's a tight block string, you get punished for it. It doesn't work. So your opponent knows that you're mashing, and you get punished for it. This is not a game where you can just option select DP into every block string like Street Fighter 4. Alright, so with all that said, let's do some stuff on the most important mechanic, the most unique mechanic probably in this game, which is the fatal shift. It's got its own button. I recommend putting this button where it's something really comfortable, because you're going to be pressing it a lot. So, fatal shift is this screen freeze, and it makes your move always a counter hit. You can cancel the move into anything, and in some cases you get new attributes on the moves. We're going to cover those a bit later. So, a large part of this game is using fatal shift to convert things that you usually couldn't. From some distances, your character just can't hit anything, so instead you want to... Oh right, yeah. The music that's playing all the time, that is Mine's theme. If you want to change this, you actually have to go into the game folder and into the BGM, and the song called 11_main.m3, that's the song that will always be playing. If you want to hear the other themes, they're actually in the game. He has made the songs, he just can't play them anyway. You just have to rename them into 11_main. And then those songs will play instead of Mine's theme. So he hasn't put in music selection yet, but the songs are in. So now we have Siska's theme instead, which I think is nicer. So when you fatal shift moves, sometimes the move changes. For example, Mine's jump speed is punches, but if you fatal shift it, it actually throws the sword onto the ground. It sticks there for a while. So you'll have to experiment with your character to find moves that change or behave differently based on fatal shifts. Now, a huge part of the game is using fatal shift to convert. For example, Mine's 5B, big move, good poke, but it doesn't lead to anything. The only thing you get is which is no Oki, almost no damage, kinda sucks. But if you use a fatal shift, since you can cancel a fatal shift move, you actually get a full combo. Now, I don't know main combos, so I don't know what to do, but you certainly do get a full combo. So, as a beginner, you pick your character, and then you try to find which moves you can usually not get any real damage from, but if you use fatal shifted moves, so you have to find your fatal shift conversions that help you actually win in neutral. Instead of just, throwing out supers hoping for the best, you should learn your fatal shift conversions. This is very much like learning YRC stuff in Exert, or FRC stuff in Plus R, or when BlazBlue had, those guard crush moves. I don't remember what they're called. I didn't play very much BlazBlue. So some moves change. My main has the most of these because he's the main character, so like this Jumpy usually doesn't reach very far. It reaches far in the air, but if you're close to the ground, it doesn't really come out. But if you fatal shift it, it's just a big projection. So experiment with your character, find what moves change. Also, notable to find if you have any good mix-ups using fatal shift. For example, if you have a move that goes airborne, you can cancel it into anything. So maybe you have a mix-up from that. If you are one of the rare characters with a standing overhead, I think only 2 characters have a standing overhead in this game. But if you do have one, you have a very basic mix-up from that. So the Fatal Shift Freeze can be cancelled into anything, including dashing. So this move is an overhead. And if you Fatal Shift it, then you can see that, oh, she's doing the overhead. But you can cancel it into a low, or a throw, or even into dashing, and then repeat it. So if they have a reversal, you can backdash. You bait the reversal and you kill them. So this is a very strong mix-up, and you should try out what does your character have. Can she do mix-ups from Fatal Shifted moves with combo? What does your character do? You have to experiment with this on your own. So after you found your conversions and your mix-ups, you can actually start playing the game for real, using Fatal Shift as your primary use of meter. Also notably, the risk gauge. Generally, you only lose risk gauge when you block. However, if you Fatal Shift a move, it will always remove at least 1 bar of risk. Some moves remove more, but all of them remove at least 1. Which means that if you have 4 meters, this is a guaranteed stun. Always, every character. So let's wrap this up and put all of this into practice, so I can show you what conclusions I reached after a couple of days of training mode and so on. So I wanted to find a conversion using Fatal Shift and something that dealt good damage. So if we do this basic starter, we notice that it doesn't really do much damage. In order to do a lot of damage as Alcott, we have to play this move. This is the strongest move. However, it's 4 hits, and if you don't hit all 4, it does almost no damage. So, trying to do this, you move. Well, that sucks. Maybe we can delay some. Nope, can't delay that. Can't delay the special cancel. So maybe you just can't hit with that. Oh, we can do some lanes, something, but can't really do anything good here. So, later. Oh, see, that's untechable. Does a lot of damage. We get all the hits, and also we use a Fatal Shift move, which means we can cancel into anything. So we can do setups for later on in the combo. So now we have the basic conversion. We know that if we spend meter here, we can go into conversion. So combo. Sorry. So the punch doesn't connect. We want the punch to connect. So we probably have to spend another meter. That works. And since we Fatal Shifted the punch, we can dash cancel it, so we even get Oki from this combo. However, note now, yeah, it did a lot of damage, I'll agree with that. It didn't do actually that much damage. Remember, the visual part scales harder than the actual life, so the combo did 7,000. Siska still has 2,000 HP left, so didn't actually do the 95% worth of it. But also, if you look at the risk gauge, you notice that it's almost empty, because comboing into Fatal Shifted moves removes risk gauge. So if Siska is scared now and tries to block, so this is how you put together all the pieces. You find your Fatal Shift conversions, you find maybe okay setups afterwards using more Fatal Shift or other moves you have? What can you convert? Can you get stun from it, and so on? So have fun experimenting in Es Laf Double Cross, I suppose. That'd be all.